Yes, good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day two of the Kampala Innovation Week. This is the third Kampala Innovation Week. We have a lot to be grateful for this year. Just yesterday, we practically blew up the internet on Twitter where we trended. We had an amazing lineup of speakers who took time out to be with us, from government to the private sector, and not forgetting our partners, Enable, the UN CDF, that's the United Nations Capital Development Fund, who have really walked with us this journey. Today is yet another exciting, action-packed day of engagement with the innovators that are changing the landscape of Uganda, for the better, of course. We'll be hearing panels from the education sector, the funders, at the entertainment sector, and very important, business growth. Up next, we'll have MCI Hub leading a panel on entertainment, on media rather. I'd like to, at this juncture, invite MCI Director Abbas with his panel. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll introduce them.
No, the rest of the...
Good. All right, good morning. Is my camera over there? Or anyway, okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Abbas Mpindi. I run an organization called the Media Challenge Initiative. What we say is that we are a youth-driven, not-for-profit, building the next generation of journalists. Today, I am very excited on behalf of the MCI and MCI Media Hub to be part of the Kampala Innovation Week, day 2. I know that there's been many conversations around how we can harness technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. But this time around, we're going to be discussing how to use the media to create or facilitate work. And I'm excited because this particular conversation is dear to me, especially from a perspective of creating employment opportunities in the media industry. But the most important thing that I am even more excited about is how can we use the media to facilitate the workspace. So on a panel that I have today, I'm very excited to have people I respect, but also people that some of us, all of us, want to be with or be around, but you can't find them because they are busy people. But they've managed to give us time. So I will go through quickly their bios. Not really bio, but because of the time, I will just invite them here on stage so that we can get the panel started. So first and foremost, we have Mr. Joe Chigozi, who works as the Deputy Group CEO and Chief of Strategy at Next Media Services. Please put your hands together for Joe Chigozi. Please come here, sir. Yes, yes. And then we have Madam Rebecca Mkite, UCC Manager, Public Relations and International Relations. Please put your hands up together for Rebecca. From the creative world, my friend David Ogutu, Team Leader, Kafunda Creatives. Please, let's clap for David. And we will be joined later by Isaac Chigozi, who is the Managing Director, East African partners, and he comes with a huge experience from international media, and others. So, thank you. I'll find a seat here. So, good morning, guys. All right. I didn't want to go through your bios because really, one, we have 40 minutes, but also two, they are really huge. So I decided that we will do something different this time around. So I know that Innovation Week this time is looking at opportunities. And everyone, when it comes to COVID-19, we're talking about the negative impact. I'm curious to know from you, on a personal level, especially starting with you, what are some of the opportunities that have come your way on a personal level because of this crisis?
Thank you very much. So, interestingly, we launched our MVP, minimum viable product, of our website, which is our primary product at Kafunda Creative, in the first wave of the pandemic. Now, what Kafunda Creative does is on three fronts: to skill, to tool, and to connect creatives to valuable work. And one of the ways we do that is through this platform, kafundacreative.com, that gets clients and matches them with the appropriate creatives. And that came out of the pandemic. I mean, we had been putting it off for a long time. We knew we had to put it out at some point. But the situation always allowed us to sort of meet clients physically and like do the thing of, hey, can you come and do this work for us? And when the pandemic hit, we're like, look, there's going to be no possibility of having this engagement, and therefore we have to do something. And we rolled it out, with with three interesting offerings where you can do a one-off job, where you can hire talent for your organization or your campaign for a specified period of time, which we call the Talent Scout, and where you can hire your own freelance agency. So you get a bunch of creatives together to give you the service that an agency could provide. And a lot of the growth that we have seen in that regard has actually been in the pandemic, and I believe due to the pandemic, because it has allowed a culture shift with people saying, look, I'm willing to work with people I haven't seen. I'm willing to work entirely online, and that created a possibility. So out of the pandemic, which was really sad, as regards the health sector and in a couple of industries, a lot of the culture change and the culture shift that we felt was needed to push products like Kafunda Creative forward happened because humanity had absolutely no choice at that point.
Good. I realize that it's really hard for you to separate Kafunda Creative from your personal life.
Yes, it is, because Kafunda Creative was built out of a personal pain.
Okay.
And I mean, the story is long, but just to put it simply, I dropped out of ARC school.
What is ARC school?
Architecture school.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing architecture. I did for 4.5 years. It's not what I wanted to do. I was frustrated. I was depressed. I dropped out. I started to build, the first version. I'd started a couple of companies before then, and all of them seemed to be working up to this. But for me, there was a constant frustration between me and a couple of creatives I used to hang out with in my flat, little flat in Wandagea called the Kafunda. And yeah, that's the name. And so what happened is we were really frustrated that it was really hard to find work out of the agency system. Yeah. It was really hard to find the tools that you needed to work, but also because creative school was really expensive, it was really, really difficult for us to upskill ourselves, right? And so out of that personal frustration, we built Kafunda Creative off those three precepts. I mean, we're still trying to build out the other three, but we're working on people being able to find work. And we're working on people being able to find skill through peer-to-peer skilling. We have a lot of people who have already done the work and paid the money, or paid the time or paid the 10, 15 years and have the experience to do that. And therefore, we work to make sure that those people can share their skills, with up-and-coming creatives, so that they can sort of bridge that skill gap in what we call creative clinics. So it comes out of a very personal. So yeah, we are together.
Gotcha. All right, thank you so much, David. Rebecca, if you can tell us about yourself, but also get deep and tell us something personal, an opportunity or something you didn't expect would happen during this, pandemic starting 2020.
Thank you very much. My name is Rebecca Mukite. I work with the Uganda Communications Commission with public and international relations. Something really personal. Well, the pandemic, I think, slowed us down and helped us to put a lot of things into perspective at a personal level, at a professional level, and generally the cycles of life. Personally, the time factor, moving from bridging your lifestyle from being scheduled and busy and working from one thing to another to all of a sudden almost coming to a standstill. You wake up in the morning and there's time. You go through the day and there's time, and you have all these small things that you're doing, but there's still time because you're held up in one place. It really gave us time to put things into perspective. On a professional level, the pandemic created or amplified the supportive role of ICTs to the livelihoods of people. And as someone who works with a regulator, it really amplified the role of ICTs in the cycle of life, not just at a national level, but now this was people's lives, everyday survival. How do you get gas from the Shell supermarket? How do you get in touch with your border person? How are you doing your banking? How are you keeping in touch with your people? How are you getting access to information? So the pandemic really amplified the ICTs and their role to the cycle of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Sir, Joe.
Yes.
I know a little bit of the academy, sports academy. I don't know if that's what happened for you, but if you can just briefly tell us something personal that changed, opportunity created by the pandemic.
Thank you very much, Abbas, and of course everyone who is behind this great initiative for the young people. For me, besides, I keep telling people, if I wasn't in the media, if I didn't decide to take this journey for the last 20 years, I would be a footballer. Yeah. That is something that I always hoped I would do. Having played soccer at an amateur level, then I didn't pursue my dream. But the dream never died. So I embarked on a journey to give other young people an opportunity that I never had. I had, but probably I didn't take it up the way I should have. Now, when I started this soccer academy 3 years ago, and then the pandemic hit, can you imagine? It happened. So I say to myself, something that I've, wanted to do for the last 10 years, now that I started in 2017, 2 years into the project, now we're curtailed by the pandemic. But for me, it was an opportunity, again, to reinvent the business or the project. During the pandemic, we were able to visit these players where they were and train from home. And I can tell you that's the greatest innovation around football. The guys who have played football, countries that have played football for the longest time, Brazil, tell you that you don't need a lot of space to play football. Yeah. That's something that came to reality. And you don't need many people. You can hone your skills, you can develop your talent using what you have. So actually what I learned in terms of talent is using what you have. And sometimes what you have is your time. What you have is where you are and to be able to harness. So we're able to survive because of that creative thinking. But also on a personal note, COVID made me realize that the things that I've known for the last 20 years, I need to relearn. People say you have a lot of experience. People keep fronting experience. People keep fronting. It doesn't matter. You have to unlearn and relearn.
Sure.
And for me, on a personal journey, I've been able to learn a lot of things. I've been able to study. Most people actually were saying, you know, this pandemic is bad, but you know, you've not had time to go back and study. Why don't you use this time to pursue that online degree or whatever, or even personal study? So all is not gloom. For those who really were prepared and those who continue to, of course, the pandemic is not yet over. We're still having the effects even more. But most importantly is to realize the opportunities that lie within us that we don't see every day. And I think that has been the greatest, you know, activity that has happened in people's lives, to know that you can actually do a lot, even in the most difficult times. But I've also learned that times like this are the ones that give you the opportunity. At a professional level, with my organization, I think this was a test of character. Yeah. This was a test of innovation. This was a test in every way for the management team, the staff, the organization. So, okay. and it's through those challenges that you are able to now start to think about how to survive. The idea has been survival. How do you survive? And I think that's very, very important. So yes, there are a lot of bad things that have happened, but there are a lot of good things that have also happened.
Thank
for
you,
those
Joe.
who are ready. Yeah.
Thank you. So now that we know, you know, all these personal, amazing things that have happened to you, personally, I was going through my phone and I Googled what are the quickest business ideas you can start in this pandemic. And one of the things that popped up was this 360 video booth idea. So on a weekend, you'll find me on weddings and events covering 360 and parties. So please, UCC, Next Media, Kafunda Creative, give me gigs. I want us to focus this conversation around how the media can enable, you know, work opportunities in a pandemic. There are two ways to it. The first way is media as a facilitator of an enabler of other industries. The other part is media as an employment space as its own industry. So Joe, I will keep to you. When I come to your office, in most cases we are talking about how can the media thrive in this pandemic. I want us to ignore that for a bit and talk about what do you think is the role of the media in terms of facilitating work, employment, innovation for young people and for a country like Uganda?
I think the pandemic has redefined the role of the media again. You find so many people saying, I work with the media, or I have a media house. I've realized that the media is such an important platform, not only to make money, but also to be able to grow businesses, to create a platform, to be that platform. But most importantly, to be able to be the source of information, correct and accurate information. You've realized that Ugandans understand COVID. You would think they are teachers today. Yeah, because the media has played a role in providing a platform where Ugandans can actually learn. But also the media opens up the opportunities like you've talked about. Opening up, for example, developing programs that can be able to transform. Developing programs that can be able to change the mindset, that can be able to help young people harness what they have. And for me, that's very important. Gone are the days when you're just going to watch news. Yeah, it doesn't matter. For what? To what end? I need to watch a news item that is going to kill my mind. I want to watch a news item that is telling me that there is Kafunda somewhere that has the opportunity for young people. But also to realize most young people are so hell-bent on being employed. I want young people to run away from that notion. Being employed is a good thing, but you don't have to be employed. It's not a must. You can create, your own business. But most importantly, how do you create your own business? I think that's the dilemma. The first thing that young people think about is money. And that's now the beginning of the problems. So the media's role is to be able to tell these young people that, you see, these are the opportunities out there. But also, you don't need to have money only. You need to have the right mindset. You need to use what you have. We have a lot of resources that we don't realize. I was listening to Denzel, I'm a great fan, by the way, and he was speaking to some university students, and he said something that really caught my attention. Time. How many young people utilize their time? So, this is the media. This is what the media is supposed to do, to tell people that this is how things should be done. This is how you start your journey. Everyone has a journey. You start from somewhere. Some of us have, the luxury of saying, we did it this way. We don't have to do it this way. You can do it your way. But there are things that you need to do. For example, your time, the knowledge. When you use social media as a source of media, what are you reading? Because that's the other thing. I see, I like TikTok. People dance and all that. But how can you use TikTok to make money? Because those are the things that now the media has to, because media has become multifaceted. It's not just your traditional television. Yep. It's not your traditional radio. Because we keep asking ourselves every day, who are we talking to? The media has to understand, whoever is behind, that the game, the cheese has moved. The people we used to talk to 10 years ago are not there. They're on the phone. So how do I get them? So the integration of media has become more important than ever. TV will stay, radio will stay. But what is important is that who am I talking to on this platform? For example, now I'm assuming, there's a Facebook Live somewhere, Twitter Space, or whatever. I'm speaking to a certain category of people who are listening in. They may even be in their kafunda somewhere on their phone and saying, Joe has a point. So the role of the media, as I wind up, yes. Abbas, the role of the media is so important, but to also transcend. The media cannot stay the same, cannot have the same rhetoric of, this is what it is. We need to be able to speak to the times. We need to be able to open up the space to think about new ideas.
Yeah, I see David, and I was coming to you before I go to Rebecca. David, yes. There's a report by UNESCO 2021 that says the film and audiovisual industry has capacity to create 20 million jobs for Africa. I mean, you're the one in the content space. What are we not doing right?
So, I mean, I've been obsessed with those reports for a long time. For example,
so they're useless.
No, they're not useless. I'm obsessed by them because it's a question that I've been trying to answer.
Yes.
For example, the creative and cultural space makes what, $2.2 trillion a year? Only 1% of that comes to Africa, right? With the biggest percentage of that going to South Africa and Nigeria. And I don't even know what Uganda is getting. So what we need to do different? One, I think we need to professionalize our systems. And that starts with, how do you create professional accreditation for filmmakers, for mic holders, for camera guys, for spotters, for we have to do that. And unfortunately, again, for us, creative education is really expensive. I tried to go and do a creative degree a couple of years ago. I needed $25,000 a year, right? Which there's no parent who is going to take a camera for $25,000. And luckily that's changing. I mean, that was a bit in the past, but the science of that has to be handled, and we have to create our own accreditation systems. And that's what we try to do at Kafunda, from a peer-to-peer system, and saying, hey, how do we get Abbas, who has been doing this for 10 years, and to create a program that can help other people who will not be able to afford the $10,000, $12,000, $25,000 dollars. And maybe this is an opportunity to appeal to people like
Sure.
Chigozie, who run establishments that have the kind of capacity to be able to get some of these things through. I've seen you've done a program with DW, which is like really, really nice. But like, how do we do that more, and how do we get that to reach beyond the precepts of Kampala? That's one. The second thing we have to work on is policy. A couple of years ago, I was having a conversation with someone in the Foreign Office, and they were talking about how they'll go out there, they'll sit with Hollywood officials, they'll have conversations about bringing some movies to Uganda, and then when they get here, right? We don't have I don't know if the Film Commission was eventually instituted. There was a conversation about it at one point. I haven't heard of that. But the kind of government structures that allow these things to go on, but also having those government structures work with the actual creatives and the actual appropriators in these spaces to be able to create policies that work. I was really bitten by the fact that half of what's that movie about the chess lady?
Queen of
Katwe had to be shot in South Africa because of policy issues, right?
Yeah.
Issues that we could have solved, and maybe, hopefully, we have learned from that experience and been able to just sort of evolve and create great policies that allow us to attract. The vice president of Disney is a Ugandan. These are conversations that can be had with people. Lukman Ali first Ugandan movie on Netflix. That creates an opportunity.
Yay.
Yeah, opportunity for Ugandan filmmakers. But there has to be a support system that allows filmmakers to thrive. I mean, and bringing in a camera, for example, the amount of tax I have to pay on a camera makes it impossible for me to afford. And if we're going to create systems, we have to work on different levels. We have to work on what we call the science of creating, which is basically getting the creators to a level where they can be either hired by international film agencies that come to film here, or they can produce the quality of work that can be bought by people like Netflix. But the third thing, so there's the creatives, there's the government sector, and then there's the private sector. In again, media houses like NBS. Is there a possibility to have a conversation around saying, okay, fine, I know the local content quota, was put there, but a lot of when we count a lot of the local content in this country, it's news and music shows, right? No one is saying, okay, we have a budding film industry. We have film people who have gone across the world and won awards and done all this stuff. How are we giving them opportunities to be able to actually air in our spaces and expose them in our spaces? Because oftentimes it seems like we start to celebrate our people after they've gone out and done something great. We should be the fire that's behind them, that's making the most noise and saying, hey, we see you, we appreciate you, keep going.
You.
And so it's a three-pronged approach, and all those sectors have to work together. The government has to create policy and put like some serious money into the creative sector. It always hurts me when people get up and talk about how creativity, they need to focus on a certain area and this area doesn't contribute. And then you look at the rest of the world and say, look, the creative and cultural sector is contributing 13.5% of the UK's GDP, right? And then you're just like, and they expect that to grow exponentially in the next couple of years. Why are we not doing that? Those guys have run out of stories. They've started doing part 2, part 3, bringing back old movies they did before.
They're even coming here.
We, on the other hand, have things that they have never ever seen, stories that have never ever been told. We have the opportunity right now to grab Hollywood, but also even before that, to create our own thriving story sector. But there are little small things that are just not making that possible.
All right.
Yeah.
Such passion. This was very strategic for me, Rebecca, to make sure that David comes first. So
Unfair is the right word.
I mean, I'm not saying you speak for the government, but you are at an institution that really could play or is playing a very vital role in terms of regulation and creating an enabling space for the creative, for the media, for all these things that David is talking about. What I know there are things that are being done. Please share those. And also, where are we going? Are there more opportunities? Are you looking at the data that is available around these industries? Are you connecting our policies to creating employment for young people in that sector, or they're just to regulate and that's it?
Thank you very much for that question. I need to take a few step backs and just to show the symbiotic relationship between content and the uptake of ICTs. They really depend on each other symbiotically. The more content you have online, the more people get online. The more, as in, having connectivity helps more people get online. But then also, people who create content need people to be online to absorb this content. So we are really cognizant of this dependency relationship between content and connectivity. And we look at content as a demand driver for the need for ICT and the entire ICT ecosystem. So from a regulatory standpoint, you mentioned an enabling environment. The Commission has really been doing a lot of interventions, guided interventions, to see how we can do more, how we can complement the actions of all the other stakeholders. He mentioned the local content quotas. They really did, in engineering we call it a unit step function, in driving the amount of local content on our channels, TV channels, and that was just one step. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the Uganda Film Festival and the categories and the workshops and capacity building that is done as a build-up to the event. So the event is like the pinnacle of a lot of things and interventions that are happening down here from the beginning. And it doesn't even just start when we do the call for submissions. No, there's a lot of work that goes into that process behind the scenes, engagement with other collaborators across other countries, internationally. Our level of involvement succeeds local interventions. You find that we're creating an environment that allows our content to match or at least grow to the level of international standards. So I'll talk about the importance of standards. He mentioned it a little bit and he called it professionalism. But from a regulatory point of view, we call it standards. That when you're developing this content, what production standards are you adhering to? What is the quality of your lighting, of your audio systems, of your video capturing? Now, as a regulator, we might not have the direct intervention to aid that process, but when there are standards in content quality, content production, genres, even the minimum broadcasting standards, they're looked at as a negative or punitive intervention, but it's actually to guide you in innovation. I'll use an analogy. If you were a car maker in, let me say in Karamoja, and you did not know that roads actually have standard width and separation of lanes, you would not be guided on how wide a car can be. What is the widest a car can be? It looks like a small thing, but that's the importance of standards. That standards will guide your innovation. Standards, whether they are cultural standards, whether they are religious standards, whether they are child protection standards, they guide your innovation. What are the limits you can push? How do you sell your content, not just for the Ugandan audience, but for the East African audience? Now, those are the interventions that the Commission or the government is doing, that as we work with our industry, how are we guiding them or hand-holding them to make sure that they pitch over and above just the Ugandan audience? The issues of accessibility, the issues of language, the issues of captioning, subtitles, those look like small things, but you'll find that when you do your series or your content and there's clarity in language that your production can pick up captioning, it means that even persons with specific needs can follow your content. And that will pitch you a level higher than just another randomly done creative that is not going all the way. So there are challenges, yes, but there are also steps that are being taken. There are standards. We now have intentional interventions like the Content Development Fund, where you look at a gap, you set a theme, you create an accreditation process or an evaluation process, and then call for submissions. So you find that interventions like UFF were looking at already done productions and all, but now the Content Development Fund is calling for you to, it's guiding your thought process, that there is this, how do I get part of this cake?
And when is this ready? I'm asking for David.
Well, I'm just like, how do we get the word out? Like, just give me the information so I can talk to people about the possibility of this.
When are we starting to apply for this money?
I just want the information.
Actually, we had the, should I call it the inaugural Content Development Fund cycle, which was this year. The call was done during the second lockdown. Yes, we leveraged on our social media, should I say, awareness interfaces for the public, and we did the call, and we got 61 entries, and there were categories. But now you see that, and there was a theme that was aligned to tourism. He talked about the untold stories in Africa. Now, you see that such interventions like the CDF require collective conversation of the ecosystem. Where is the gap? What can we address in this cycle? What sector can we handhold that can be supported by the creatives to put good content out there, produce it, work through it, and get it out there in the right quality, following the right processes and procedures. So those are just some of the few interventions, but there are more interventions, but we need to change our perspective of the role of the government. It's actually a complementary role, because if we're to be realistic, these are issues that are competing with so many other needs that the government has to cater for. And yet this is, for you, the uniqueness of Creatives for Uganda is our demographic, that we have a lot of young people. And this is an industry that can really thrive a lot based on our demographics.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, would you know the kind of categories or entries that were submitted, and what areas? So is it like film, poetry?
This just concluded cycle, I'm sorry, I'm going to paraphrase. There was a category on animation. Okay. There was a category on short films. There was I'm sorry, I'll get you that information. Okay. I don't have it off cuff right now. Yeah.
All right. Joe, there is the 70% quota by UCC. But usually when a content creator goes to a media house, there's the issue of the business model behind content brought in by content creators. Either it's a revenue share, which can sometimes be limiting for that young content creator, or it is bring your sponsor. Again, there is the reality that we have a policy in place, but the action to implement is deterring in a way, because I know a lot of people who have shows or content, good content, but when it gets to find a sponsor.
Yeah.
So I don't know, how do we deal with that? Is there a way you're working on this at Next Media to at least like provide space that intentionally, besides music and news that that David talked about, that allows, you know, other Ugandan content to be on air on the different channels that you have, like NBS, Sanyuka, and others?
Yeah, so of course when you talk about content, content is of different categories. For sports content, you see what we're trying to do. We decided on a journey to develop Ugandan sport because we noticed that when you look at the past producers of our league, were either Super Sport, Azam, and all that. So we said, why? We have the capacity. Can we build this capacity? Just one football match like today, Villa is playing in Jero. You have 50 young people who are going to be employed directly, and another 100. That's from the sports, you know, direction. In terms of entertainment content or creative, I think there is a bit of a challenge, I must say. When you think about the cost of producing a film, it's very, very expensive, a good film. We are not short of writers, we are not short of cinematographers, we are not short of everything. And this is where now the partnerships need to come in. Partnerships from government, from, you know, private sector, to see how we can augment this journey for young people. One film alone casts, I mean, you have about 100 young people. Recently we were shooting Chadala. I happen to be a chairman leading these young people. So I visited the site when they were shooting. I saw 200 young people. I was happy, and it's during COVID. But these young people have decided to work on partnerships. This is the solution now for the young people. It's very expensive to produce content, regardless of your idea. You have to create partnerships. We partner, for example, with BBC, with Deutschwelle. We partner. But of course, we are trying to stay our identity. Of course, with partnerships, sometimes they come with the, you know, you have to give away something sometimes, but you have to know that this is what you want to achieve. This is how this content will help Ugandans, and that's very, very important. If we do an investigative piece that is going to trend across the world, and work with BBC, we want to tackle an issue within Uganda. If you remember Stealing from the Sick, one of the most popular, it was a collaboration between us and BBC, but did it help Ugandans? That kind of content. So what I'm trying to say is that if you are out there and you want to create content, what the sponsor is looking out for is not just telling them, young people will say, oh, come and work with us because we will put your logo, we will you see,
exposure.
Give you exposure. That's an old story. What the sponsor is looking out for is, if I invest 5 million a week in your project, how is it going to translate to the eyeballs and eventually to the sales? Now, what you need to do is that whenever you're creating content, you have to create content that is transformational. That's very, very important. Not a gut feeling. You need to be able to address a gap. What gap am I addressing? For example, if unemployment is the gap that you're addressing and you want to give, you know, ideas to young people, then there are companies out there that are interested or that are aligned to that because they want to get their message out to young people. So yes, if you come to a media house, the reason why we normally tell you that, you know, let's do a revenue share, let's go out in the market and sell, is because even the airtime that we are talking about, UCC will tell you, they've already told us that we cannot advertise for a certain amount of time. You need about 10 minutes per hour. Now, 10 minutes per hour, I have to create premium content that is going to be attractive so that I can meet the standards of UCC. So all those things put together, media houses are finding themselves in a precarious situation. You have to survive because that airtime has to be paid for, the staff have to be paid for, the cameras and all that. This does not mean, of course, we cannot support the industry or we haven't supported the industry. It comes with a lot of challenges. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's why some of this content is not consumed or is not taken up, because even at the planning phase, you need to be able to work with the media house. You want to start up a concept, you need to be able to visit us, our producers, and find out, because we do a lot of research. We know content that sells, content that flies, content that is needed by Ugandans, but also out of research, the kind of content that will appeal to young people. For example, right now, if you think about Guinness, Guinness is trying to communicate something about your black shining brightest. They're trying to talk about the ability of young people, the creative animal within them. That's your black shining brightest. So it's not just an advert. They are on a journey to see how we can mentor young people. So if you think about that message they're trying to do and develop a concept around that, then your content will be able to be paid for, what you'd call commissioning, or someone investing into your content. But the most important thing is the idea. The idea has to be aligned to the strategy of the organization. Okay. That's very, very critical.
Thank you so much, Joe. David, you have experience on radio. You also have experience now in the creative space. The language you've been speaking so far is really like things that can be done in Kampala. I'm curious to know, besides the media, the content that goes on the media platforms, what are the other opportunities that can, for example, work for a young person in Chisoro or Karamoja or Arua in relation to this conversation that we're having? What are the spaces that
Look, I was really just having a conversation earlier before this started with my colleague from Wape. We do a similar business model, and we're just trying to connect creatives to clients. And we're having a conversation around how a lot of businesses are built around the Kampala ecosystem.
Yeah.
And what businesses like him and mine are trying to do is, a lot of people talk about, breaking the country boundaries. But especially in emerging countries like ours, you find that they're like economic nucleuses that also need to be broken before we start thinking about Nairobi and all those places. And so what we're trying to build at Kafunda is an opportunity for people to be employed from anywhere, right? To be employed from, and that's what we do, is that you don't have to be in Kampala to be, in fact, the client doesn't have to care where you are. They have to care what you can deliver, right? And that's what they're looking at, all the time. And therefore, what we do is the client is picking your project. They send us a brief, and they say, I want this built. And we send them a bunch of creatives. No one cares about your location. They care about your portfolio and your cost center, right? And they hire you based on that. And so we feel like that platforms like ours that decentralize the hiring system allow for that to happen. And there's lots of opportunity. And you're finding more and more, again, luckily, with the COVID pandemic, is a lot more people are willing to outsource certain things. They don't have to hire in-house graphic designers. They don't have to hire in-house, filmmakers. They don't have to hire, people like that, and they can outsource those services. But also, you're finding that it's possible, because it's unfortunate that you find an NGO that is doing work in Gulu is going to come and hire a film house out of Kampala and drive them all the way to Gulu to be able to do that. And hopefully, in the future, we can be able to, curate and collect, people in different locations and be able to say, look, I'm out of Gulu, and you don't have to, it saves you money, but this is the quality of work, and I'm producing the same kind of quality of work, with what's being produced everywhere. So the opportunities do exist. Another huge opportunity is through taking on the man, taking on the big media conglomerates by independent content creation. And this doesn't mean that you're just trying to take them down. It means that there's an opportunity that is unfortunately bigger, a need bigger than they can fulfill. And there's an opening for independent content creators. Independent, and I don't know, I mean, we need to maybe talk about the policy on things like this and how other people can get into the system properly, with the appropriate standards. But independent documentaries, around things that for a long time have just been mainstay of just, the news broadcasting houses. I mean, look, phones have gone a huge way in the kind of quality of stuff that they can record, and the kind of content that you can tell. We have distribution channels that yes, are growing in number, are allowing Ugandans from YouTube to Facebook to TikTok to all those things. Unfortunately, Facebook. But anyway, there are those distribution places, and so there is also an opportunity because of how much content people are consuming for independent content creators to be able to make money from podcasting, and it takes a lot. It's not money that's going to come into your pocket immediately. But if you're willing to do the work, the opportunity does exist, because I know people who are making money from either those streaming distribution rights, or from just companies saying, hey, we like your product. I mean, look at Ankomo,
Ankomo.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rebecca, I mean, we have been joined by Isaac Chigozi. Isaac Chigozi is an international executive producer. Now he's working into investment and trade. He'll be talking about himself later. Thank you so much for coming, even amidst your busy schedule. So Rebecca, the commission, what are you doing about, same question that I asked David, about that young person who has a, sort of like maybe a music, dance and drama, or somewhere outside of this capital, doesn't have access to ICTs, but they have, a group out there that is in the creative space. They need access to a platform like NBS, but they don't have a way to get there. How do we get those ideas and that creativity to take advantage of media platforms? I don't know, again, what is your role in that space? But I'm curious to know if there is a thought process in each and every level of planning to think about, of course, there is work to increase penetration of ICTs across the nation so that each and every young person is not left behind. But besides that, the intentionality of thinking about this space, people are shouting all around about copyrights and all these things, ideas are being stolen here and there. So what are we doing?
The intentionality of planning is actually what is happening in that space. You find that the government cannot make targeted interventions to individuals because our planning is for masses. And one of the key issues for ICTs, even as we work on the supply side of making sure that the networks are up, the networks have a decent quality, there is connectivity, there is the demand side of that equation. Can people afford these services? Are the devices available? Are consumers protected by the exposure to the services that are supposed to be good but can have some negative outcomes? So to answer your question, yes, there are interventions in that direction, but most of these interventions are targeted to masses. We have interventions in terms of the Universal Access Fund, that access to ICTs should not be only to those who are privileged. It should be universal. Okay. ICTs are transformational in nature. So it's one thing for that young person to have their group to be doing something out there, but how do they get their idea out to the public, to the world? They need connectivity. They need to be able to get online. they need to be able to afford to be online, to see what other people are doing. Your perspective in life is limited or guided a lot by your level of exposure. So if I am doing transformational things in Kabong, how do I complement what I'm doing with what's happening in Brazil? I need connectivity.
Yep.
What is the Commission doing about connectivity in Kabong? We are doing interventions that ensure that there's universal access for the underserved and the unserved areas. Those interventions are going all the way to broadband now. Initially, it was just voice access, that everyone should have network and what, but now we are looking at interventions and partnerships that ensure that there is a decent internet connectivity at a community plug point in Kabong, that there's a school that has connectivity, that there is a community point of access that has connectivity, that there is internet access along the highways, that when I have this experience on my journey, whether I'm from there or not, I can communicate, I can get more information, I can reach out to more people, I can put my story out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Isaac, thank you for coming once again. You have a huge experience working in media, in film, in music internationally. You're nominated Emmy producer. You've come back home to work on different sectors, including the documentaries and telling stories. Today's discussion is around, how media can be used to create employment opportunities or even to facilitate the work. From your international experience, what do you think that the media should be doing here, and how can we take advantage of the various platforms? What are other people that you work with? What are they doing out there that we should be doing here? Yes.
Thank you, boss. I think Uganda is doing everything the right way already. I think it started off where we started registering artists and having artists come together in a union. Because until you come together, artists come together and demand for their copyrights, the copyrights will never be there. Networks like MBS have done a great job in pushing the online digital approach to media. As my brother mentioned here, content is not like how it used to be. It's not digested just on television anymore. Content is mostly digested on your tablet, on your phone, on your computer. And when you create content which can be digested on your mobile devices, you're able to get better analytics, which then allow you to profit by it. One thing that we focused on heavily in the States was creating content that can be digest for the millennials that have ADHD, small attention span. They don't want to watch 22, 23-minute episodes. They want to watch a micro episode. Why TikTok and Instagram lives have done so well, because individuals now want to digest content in short form. I think you mentioned we have a number of social media phenoms in Uganda that have done a great job branding themselves and marketing themselves around the globe. One thing I think we can do better is protecting our content, setting up stronger copyrights. I have had meetings with my colleague Joe Chigozi and spoke to him about the same. Setting up stronger copyrights to protect from brands utilizing your music without paying you, protect international companies from utilizing your content that you post online on their network without paying you royalties. Right now, there's very few options to attach penalties to those individuals. When they steal your content and they air it in New York or UK, it's difficult to attach that. I think that's something that maybe UCC can help with, to find stronger ways of defending the copyright of Ugandans. I was really pleased recently when I had a meeting with Operation Wealth Creation and General Saleh, and the work that he's doing to bring about the creatives. Bring the creatives together, utilize them, have them registered so we understand who they are, we understand their talents. That will then allow us to promote them. You can't be promoted until your talents are known. To also add on to what you said, When it comes towards creating content and the power of content developers at home, you have an audience in Uganda of 46 billion people that have different likes and dislikes. I think when people develop content towards an audience, if they skew content towards a demographic, whenever I meet with script writers, producers, story producers, I always tell them, understand your audience and then attach an emotion to that audience. And then once you attach an emotion to that audience, then you can create a content that has cachability. But until you skew your content to a specific audience, and until you understand the emotion you want that audience to feel when they watch your content, you can't equate a dollar amount to what that content is going to be transformed to. And then you allow the big networks and everyone else to dictate what you get paid. But once you create content in a way where you know the audience that's going to digest it, you understand the emotion you want them to have when they digest that content. It allows you to create content that's organic to them, which allows you to profit from it. So I think that's also a very important part, as well as having proper ethics. You know, as content,
before you go to ethics, I am just a young person out there is watching and is hearing you mention these points. How do you, create content that, like, what techniques, what do you add into your content? How do you actually structure your content to appeal to those emotions you're talking about, your audience? Because I know you did share something with our students at the MCI about the different techniques that a radio presenter or a podcaster can use to dominate the industry. So are there specific things that you could share? If Ogutu is a radio presenter, has a podcast, what can he do right in terms of, like, do this, do this, do this?
When it comes to creating content, there's no right or wrong way. The best content is created when it's organic to yourself, because then you know how you feel. You know what you like. So when you create content for your audience as if they're you, it allows you to understand them and understand how to mold them into the way that you want them to be molded into. When I was creating content back in America, we would lock in on a location. From a location, if we're skewing content towards individuals, say 18 to 25, middle income, college graduate, stay at home with their parents, average spend between $5 to $10 if they go to McDonald's. They have iPhone 5. That allows me now to do a character analysis of my audience. And with that character analysis, I can then understand the emotion that I want to attach to that character so that I understand the outcome that I want to have from each segment. So we would break down our content by the segment. So we know from this segment to the next segment, how do I keep that audience past the commercial? Because as networks, you only make money during the commercial.
Yeah.
So if I have a content that people switch off during the commercial, then advertisers won't want to advertise on my network. So we create content that have a sizzle ability towards the end of the content to lead them over the commercial. So we have content that pushes them past the commercial. Then we make sure, like I said, the key thing is that it's visceral. The content that you're developing is visceral. It has a deep emotional and physical feeling that people feel when they watch it. So then they're not just watching it for laughs and giggles, but they're watching it because they feel something. And then understanding, is your content going to be self-contained, or is it going to be an overarching episodic arc to it? Once you understand if you're making self-contained content or a long series content, it allows you also to understand the attention span of your audience that you're having. There's several different techniques we use depending on the age of the artist that we have, the sex of the audience, the professionalism that the audience has. But the easiest audience to keep is the audience for radio. Radio people love their content, and when the content is, and it allows you to imagine, it allows you to close your eyes and get a POV of what you think the presenter is looking like, or what the presenter is doing in the radio station. So I think it's just really dialing down on your audience, taking a scientific approach to media, using more of a scientific approach and really identifying the stereotypes of your audience, and then understanding if you want to keep them within that stereotype or if you want to change them to a different stereotype. And once you understand their stereotype and how you want to formulate them, then at that point, then you control the narrative, and then that allows you to help them along the way.
Okay, thank you so much. We are running out of time, so we have questions from Joe. You have something to add?
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
just...
Just 1 minute, please.
Yeah, what's happening right now is, of course, we are dealing with the pandemic right now. But the biggest catastrophe that could ever happen to Africa is going to be when Facebook says we are closed. Yeah? We have over-relied on these platforms, and we don't control them.
Yeah.
In 2015, when Uganda decided to migrate from analog to digital, people never realized what was going on. The TVs you see today are content providers. They no longer own the platform. Today, if StarTimes decides to close shop or DSTV, where are you
You're
going to
out
watch
of
the
the-
content from?
Yeah.
Next Media, we've decided on a journey to create our own platform. Now, I know some people think we are overly being ambitious, but if you have 500,000
ambition.
downloads in less than 3 months on a mobile app called Afro Mobile, you're simply saying, we want to create a platform where young people, because as the media owners or managers, we don't have all the ideas. We're not privy to all the ideas. You guys have the ideas. But we need a platform where you can bring those ideas and we can start talking money, and which is controlled. He's talked about copyright and all that. Where is your intellectual property? Where is it protected? If you are on a platform like Afro Mobile and you're creating content, and we grow the numbers together, we'll be able to make money. Because we realize we have programs like, for example, the Frontline. The guys in the diaspora have been consuming this content for free. You've seen bloggers repurpose this content, make money, get numbers. We decided that, you know what? We need to aggregate all our content, put it on a platform, and this is the future, by the way. The future is that. This is going to be the Netflix of Africa, if you like. So far, we're still dealing with the traditional TVs, but we are also looking at content producers or providers who are going to come on this platform. We create the numbers together. If we can get 5 million people on Afro Mobile, I can tell you everyone is going to be smiling, because people are going to consume this content, original content. That's the other thing. You control the copyright. If I have a right to a certain type of content, it can go as far as, you know, the US, Canada. Everyone in Canada will pay $5, will pay $3, and we will do the math and share this money together. So what I see now is owning of our own platforms. It's going to be very, very important.
Thank you so much. So owning our platforms, that means also controlling power and money and controlling our own narrative. So we have a few questions from the online audience. This question goes to Rebecca. I think this aligns with that fund, with the money. So to Rebecca, what's the turnaround time for a program that has been submitted to UCC for approval?
Actually, the fund is ideally supposed to be annual, subject to budget availability. However, there's a period for a call, for the call for entries. There's an evaluation period and review, and then the fund, then you're awarded. Then the award is given, and that is the cycle for the year. Okay. So there will definitely be a call for the subsequent cycle. The cycle for this year ended, and I think we got 61 entries and 5 winners with the categories. So there's going to be a call for the next cycle. There will be a theme, there will be genres, and it's a guided process with specific specific interventions.
61, are they all receiving some money? No, or just selected few maybe?
Of course, there are people. They're the winners, yes.
Okay.
But then the process of submitting your entry and the evaluation definitely adds value to your next production.
Okay.
Because that process of scrutiny, of guided feedback, of the evaluation will give you feedback on where you need to improve, what you need to work on, and all that. So let everyone look out for the next cycle, for the next call,
All right.
which will be 2020 to 2023.
Okay, and then another question for you again. To date, using of Facebook is still restricted. Kindly enlighten us on if there are any plans to unblock it, because so many local businesses and content creators are suffering, and that is how we are blocking the employment space. So. Good one.
Okay.
Isaac, you please go first, and then Isaac seems to have a comment.
Well, those negotiations are taking place are happening at a much higher level, at a government level. Institutions like Facebook now are, should I say, it's like digital infrastructure. They run an infrastructure system, and negotiations with governments, because governments reserve the right of admission to everything that prevails within their space. It's it's a national administration, and that negotiation is happening at a high level, and it is happening.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Isaac, you want to jump in?
I think to talk about Facebook, there's a lot that these digital platforms are doing to circumvent Uganda. Some of those things are, you find, as much as we're Ugandans and we like using Facebook, we also have to look at Facebook of what they're doing to harm our economy. Facebook collects billions of dollars from Uganda, and they pay zero taxes on that money they create from ads. It's an issue that Facebook has been circumventing. That's why I support government stopping Facebook until Facebook stops circumventing. You find countries like China, when that happened, China said, okay, we'll make our own. Nigeria recently did the same thing. You know, when you constantly circumvent policies within government, which will be helped to build more roads, to pay more teachers, put more lights, clean up those potholes, and improve the infrastructure of the country, as Ugandans, we should stand together and say, Facebook, get your act right. You know, stop circumventing, pay your due diligence taxes, stop hiding from your taxes, and pay the necessary taxes to help improve the country. And there's so many other platforms and ways to make money besides Facebook. Instagram is there, Twitter is there. It's a Facebook product, but Twitter is there, and there's so many other platforms that could be used. But I don't think we should be up in arms for an organization that makes billions of dollars, yet brings in zero when it comes to our taxes.
This is getting heated. Yes.
No, it's not.
Creative.
Look, I think it's very valid that these huge organizations, if I'm advertising on Facebook, some of that money should be able to come back to the country in which I'm advertising. And look, that comparison, in my opinion, doesn't make sense, because we still use Instagram, right? But I think, yes, I know countries, I think in South Africa does it, you know, and they'll put it, if you're advertising in South Africa, Facebook will even tell you that you are paying I think it's a value-added tax that goes directly to the government. And I hope that in those high-level negotiations that are happening, you know, those are some of the things that are being spoken about. And yes, I mean, there's a complete understanding that the government of Uganda reserves the right to admission, which is a really important thing. But again, we can build our networks. China built something, I've forgotten it, which is one of the biggest. But also China has 1 billion people and has the ability to self-sustain that way. And therefore we have to look at our reality. I'm really glad that, you know, the guys from NBS are building a native platform that allows, you know, the earning to be more clear, because a lot of times you don't consider that. But if we're talking about you know, regulating these platforms and them contributing the tax base, then we need to do this across the board. People advertising on Twitter. I remember, you know, a couple of months ago, YouTube sent out a notice and said, hey, I think if you don't declare, you know, what country your content is being made in and stuff like that, you're going to pay tax in the US. by default, you know. And so if that conversation is going to be had, then it needs to be had across the platform. It needs to be had with Twitter, it needs to be had with YouTube, which is a valuable thing to have, because of course it will add much needed dollars to the economy. Yeah, but let's also be honest about our situation, about why we're doing certain things. But also there needs to be a level of because people keep asking those questions, mostly because there is no communication from the side of the government as to what's happening. And again, there are lots of PR people, there are lots of media creators, little people can help you with that. But the government needs to communicate more, communicate often, and communicate better. Because as long as people are left in the dark, then we're just going to speculate. Yeah, and I think that needs to happen. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Finally, Joe, one question for you from Hubilo. Also, just to let you know, Hubilo is this streaming platform for this event, and I think it's built specifically for this event, and also by young Ugandans who are working on it. So for those who want to stream, make sure you go to the organizers and ask more about this platform. Joe, people are asking for opportunities to collaborate with Next Media. Do you outsource local content, and what's that process?
Yeah, of course, the process is the same. You're doing a pitch, we'll give you an opportunity to come and pitch to the content team. You realize, like I said, we don't have all the ideas. Some of the content you see running is through partnerships. We believe that there are so many young people out there who are doing a lot of creative work. They may not have the resources in terms of platforms, in terms of equipment, but they've got the idea. So you simply have to write to us, visit our website, go to our pages. I've seen young people today go on Twitter and say, I want a job. They can even send a proposal on Twitter. I don't encourage that, but I mean, you can send an email. You can, come to our offices. They're very open. We'll be able to meet you. But most importantly, there is a lot of opportunity that the young people can harness. Like I said earlier on, it's your mindset. Some of these things that we talk about are not going to just change just like that. And just like COVID, survival instincts have to chip in. We have a lot of stories to tell as Africa, as Uganda. We need to be able to tell them our way. And we can use the resources. I have a friend of mine who works with BBC, Ugandan. He's been doing a lot of good journalism using his phone. And for him, he never complained about not having a camera. But the most important thing is that he's able to create content using a phone. That's a mindset change for young people especially. I have interacted with so many of them who tell you, I don't have a camera, I need an HD camera, I need this. You need to start from somewhere. And that's the problem. And you see, this is one of the biggest challenges. And I must be honest, because I've been around, I've been younger before. Still young, though.
Of course.
I don't know whether being on the 4th floor is still young. But my mind is still young. I see a lot of potential with our country for only those who have the right mindset. And that's very important. It's not enough for you to have the skill. You might be a graphics guy. One time I had to, and these are personal experiences, I had to call a young person for a job to go and work for someone. And this guy said, he sent me a quotation of about 10 million. I sat and said, but does this young person know what it means to grow your portfolio? And we negotiated. He said, no, I cannot work. My fees, consultancy are 3 million. You actually put in dollars, $3,000.
Also, Joe, there is know your value.
there is that popular thing of knowing your value. But you see, you are as good as what you do.
Yes.
I'm giving you an entry point to create graphics work for a company. And all you have to do is to have an entry. Because this is the practical bit of life. You're not going to start from up there. You have to start from somewhere. You start with the phone, shooting, and then you upgrade, you go to the next camera, And these are experiences. When we started out to shoot football, and allow me to say this, because it was Super Sport, Azam, and all these other big entities, the amount of camera that you need to have quality production, sports production, is about $300,000. This Ugandan market cannot afford it. Yeah, that's the reality. The kind of stuff you see on the EPL, on the Bundesliga, La Liga, these guys are using $500,000 cameras. Does it mean we can't put that game on local TV? We can. So you start with, a lower version. You grow season 1, season 2. I can tell you we've grown from a 6 camera production to 8. That is what I'm talking about. So that mindset for me is going to be very key for the young people who are creating content. The partnerships I've talked about, your mindset as the key to unlock your potential is very important.
Okay, quickly, we're coming to an end, but I'll give you a chance, 1 minute to just...
I think what Mr. Joe said is correct, but it's also correct for us to make sure we're not exploiting developers and writers and content developers. I've seen a number of content developers who go to networks here in Uganda, and they get heavily exploited. Because of that, we're going to give you credits, and this is work experience. When it comes to IP, IP is something that's more valuable than any labor that you can ever do, because it's something that God blessed you with. So I think we also have to respect the IP and respect people's IP, as well as create, hopefully through UCC, a way for developers to submit projects through the standard operating procedure to have them copyrighted before they send them out to networks. That's one thing that I think will be extremely helpful. Yeah, it'll be extremely helpful. My first television show that I developed, I was blessed to have people who showed me the ropes how to do it, and it cost me $20 to copyright my concept before I submitted it to E, and it got picked up and sold. But a lot of people don't know those routes, how to do it, how to get their content copyrighted. I think it'd be great if UCC on their social media platforms can provide those links and that knowledge for content developers to understand where do they send their content to, how do they get it copyrighted, what's the certification process, and then what are the penalties if someone steals that content. And lastly, there's another platform that's being created now, local content, a local platform called What's Down by Operation Wealth Creation, which I think is going to be also a very amazing way for locals to interact and share content and profit from those content and be able to understand where that content is going and who's watching that content. And then very lastly, I think it's key for content developers to be patriotic. You have to love your country, not the government, but the country. And as content developers, until we come together to say that the narrative we want to push of Uganda is going to be a positive narrative, no matter who's behind, but Uganda is ours. Governments change, but the people never do. And if we become more patriotic and have that ideological mindset, that's when we come together and we can force the Facebooks and these other brands and major networks to work with us. But when we're pitting out a negative image of our country and of ourselves, we can't expect anyone to want to work and invest in us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, David. Thank you, Isaac. It's been a pleasure to host you. If there's anything that I've taken out of this conversation, respect the IP and protect the IP and work together as an industry to create opportunities for other industries, and also create our own platforms that can give us power and money, and also to protect and challenge the narratives. So with those few remarks, we are ready for the next session. MC, thank you so much for the time, and let's continue with the Kampala Innovation Week and enjoy all the sessions that are coming up. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Obugalo, our hands together for this rich resource which we have received. My takeaways were that the opportunities are there, up to 20 million jobs in the media industry, and I mean, that's a low-hanging fruit that we must grab with both hands. Up next, we have a keynote from Alice Mwonge, CFO, investor, business advisor, Otis Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together.
Good morning. Thank you, the presenters who was here before. It was quite exciting to hear what is happening in the art and entertainment. And now we'll go to discussing really about funding, funders, the different business stages. I'm Alice Mwonge. As mentioned, I'm the CFO of Otis Africa Capital. Otis Africa Capital is an investment and advisory firm. So let me go straight to really funding, identifying and taking advantage of funding opportunities, and we'll also take time to go through the different stages of a business and understand at these different stages, what funding do I need? My keynote today will be in form of a speech. There is so much time you would need to really get into funding, to get into talking about financing, to get into discussing what businesses need. And really financing is at the backbone of it. It's at the core of it. Everybody talks funding, finance. It's key and core to solving the solutions and problems that society faces. So in identifying and taking advantage of funding opportunities, what are we talking about? What should we look out for? To identify as many potential funding sources as possible, your organization needs to carefully understand the stage at which your business is and vividly research the sources of funding necessary at your stage. Financing can range from debt, that is fixed repayment obligations, lower risk, to equity, which is contingent repayment obligations, and then in between convertible debt, and then you also have revenue shares. However, the primary sourcing of funding can be differentiated as public sector funding, which is from the federal states, from the local government, and the private sector. So this is venture capitalists, angel investors, foundations, and corporations. So when you're understanding the stages of business, I know this is something not many entrepreneurs will think about, or not even many businesses have actually taken time to sit and think about, where is my business? What stage of business growth or business life cycle am I at? Where do I then look for funding, depending on the stage of business that I am in? So let's understand the different stages of the business. So in identifying potential funders whose interests align with your organization's missions, priorities, and program plans is very crucial. Before the start of your research or searching for potential funders, fundamental questions you need to ask yourself are, really, how much money will be required for this stage of business that I'm looking at? Where am I at now? Am I in early stage, idea stage? So how much money is required? When will that money be required? What will the money be used for? When can debt be repaid? And then when can investors expect to see returns? These are critical questions you need to ask yourself before you jump into getting a bank loan, before you jump into getting money from a loan shark. Ask yourself these questions and really analyze and see, do I really need the money right now? Questions such as, I'll repeat them, how much money will be required? When will the money be required? What will the money be used for? When will the debt be paid back? And when can investors expect to see returns? So most businesses pass through different series of stages, of well-defined stages, based on their level of development. Churchill and Lewis in 1983 said and identified that all businesses vary greatly depending on their size and the potentiality for growth. However, they all experience common problems that arise at similar stages of their development. So from these observations came the 6 stages, the life cycle of a business. So these are methods of obtaining financial capital, and they are more suitable for a business depending on the current stage of its life cycle. So we'll look at the different stages of business. The first stage is the idea stage. So there are 6 stages. It's the idea stage, you have the seed stage, you have the early stage, you have the later stage, the mezzanine stage, and the development stage, or the latest stage. Yeah? So in the idea stage, this is the first stage. A new company begins to look for a seed or an idea. Yeah? You're planting a seed out there. This stage is normally referred to as the idea stage. These young businesses normally focus on addressing society problems, identifying challenges within the society, and developing a proof of concept to establish your business model. So it's crucial for you to identify a problem that society is facing. So don't just build your idea around, an enclosed box. Go around, do your research, find out what the society needs. How do I address this problem? Yeah. The external financing needs are high at this stage. Yeah? You're beginning. You don't really have any cash flows coming out of that business. And since that company, the idea stage company, needs money to develop but lacks retained earnings, they are frequently financed through bootstrapping. So bootstrapping would be money you're getting from friends, family, debt, and grant providers. They also require seed money, a form of securities offering in which an investor, or usually friends or family, one angel investor, purchases part of a business. Yeah? The source of the financing may depend on the perceived riskiness and growth of that business. Yeah? So in venture capitalist terms, this is also called the pre-seed or the pre-seed stage of financing. Business owners looking for pre-seed capital will draw from personal savings. Yeah? You're drawing money from friends, you're asking friends and family to contribute to this idea that they have also been talked about. You've also told them about this idea, and they're buying into that idea. So they're contributing and raising money for your idea. Yeah. You can also target crowdfunding campaigns and platforms to raise money at this stage. So until you verify that your business idea is something customers want, yeah, it's generally not a very good idea for you to take out a loan at this stage. Yeah. Likewise, angel investors and venture capitalists will want to see some early businesses, the results before, they want to see results from that business before they participate in funding your business. Yeah. So that's the idea stage. Let's look at the seed stage. So a business in this seed stage level has evolved, and it has evolved from the idea stage, yeah, and has verified that it has a workable business model, and the business idea is something that customers want, and they will continue to buy into it. So businesses under this stage are normally characterized by challenges around revenue growth, and as they don't have enough money to cover product development, yeah, they also might not have enough money to cover certain expenses, for example, rent, all the employees that they need to pay. They might not have enough money to cover assets and other employee costs, and they're not able to provide the service that they really would want, but it's in plan. Yeah? In the venture capital world, the seed round is when business owners gather capital to get the product up and running from the idea stage. Some venture capitalists and other investors may be interested in investing in a solid business plan. You want to invest, but you want to see how solid is this plan. What is their vision? What's their mission? What's their priorities? What is their 3 to 5 year plan, yeah, before you invest? They also want to see whether there's an effective management team, high growth potential, and high target minimum returns at this stage. However, there are a number of ways to get funding. So at this seed stage, you could seek out angel investors, incubators, government institutions, equity crowdfunding, grant providers, micro-lenders who would normally give you small loans and would say small, maybe less than 50,000, because when you go to the advanced worlds, really 50,000 is a small loan, but here in Uganda, the 50,000 could shake up an individual, and they may not even be able to progress past getting 50,000. So let's look at the early stage. Yeah? At the early stage, you have businesses. In this stage, they have proven and tested the prototype or the model, and there is progress to initial commercial production and sales. Yeah? The business may be generating early stage revenue, but might not be as profitable yet. Yeah? They've built a team, and they're also pushing for customer traction. So these are characterized by activities such as research development, market research, and product business development activities. This is considered by entrepreneurs and investors and researchers to be the riskiest stage in the startup life cycle. Entrepreneurs here are facing and are financing this stage of business. Really, they're bootstrapping and they're trying to boost growth. They're trying to boost sales. But one, they haven't really made so many sales to be able to get money from revenue or retained earnings to cover their expenses. And they're still also looking for money to be able to still cover these expenses to grow. Yeah? So this may include comparing the product or service with existing offerings already in the market. Yeah? So at this stage, you're going out to the market, you're testing it. We call it beta testing. You're going out to the market, you're testing it in a live environment. Yeah? As opposed to now you've been testing it, maybe using your system developers or your in-house specialists. But now you're going out live. Problems might occur if it's a technology, for instance, and you put it live, and you have so many people participating on that platform. It could crash in a day, yeah? So all your idea, all the things that you've actually been building up can actually go crashing. But you keep continuing and say, okay, past the beta stage, we have seen their lessons learned, how do we improve and work from this and still progress, yeah? So the purpose of this stage is to reach a minimum viable product or value offering into the market. Financing options here include venture capitalists. You might do a Series A fundraising. Angel investors, accelerators, government institutions, yeah, and the like. So let's look at the later stage. What does it look like? What funding opportunities are available here? So at this stage of business, the company has a proven concept and it's operating as a commercial entity with an achieved significant revenue compared to its competition and is approaching cash flow or break-even point and might even be making positive income. So the business is looking to expand the coverage, the product coverage, as well as the geographical scope. The startups have successfully increased their market share at this stage and have high cash flow and can request late-stage funding. Also, venture capital firms may focus on this type of investment. This means that they only invest in private equity companies when these companies have passed the product development stage and they're well-known products on the market. Yeah? So funding at this stage is really crucial. It's either to cover the necessary changes in regards to product expansion or business development or expansion of the geography of the product. In addition, venture capitalists and corporate venture capitalists, they take center stage here and they're the key financiers. Yeah? An example would be of this late stage financing or business stage would be financing for business expansion. Yeah? So for example, a company in Uganda wants to expand to Kenya, to Tanzania, to South Africa. So they're looking for funding that is going to help them achieve this push through to different geographical regions. Looking at the mezzanine stage, this is provided for major expansion of a business that has an increasing sales volume and is also profitable. These funds are used for further plant expansion, for marketing, for working capital, or developing an improved product. A mature company at the stage of the mezzanine stage is really no longer small. Yeah? So you can see this takes time. Though we're going through them really fast now, but this takes years. As a company will grow from idea, maybe even taking a year or two, they get into the early stage, it takes years. Yeah? And it's different for all companies. So there's no one shoe fits all here as you're going through the different stages of business. And just to take into account that, yes, the challenges will be there, but the business has got to go through all these stages. All businesses go through these stages. We might not know them because we don't know, we're not aware about them. The knowledge is not out there. But even those that have started business will understand and see, yes, my business maybe was at an idea stage at some point. I didn't understand that clearly. It has grown to an early stage, yeah? Which funders should I then target? Yeah? So under the mezzanine stage, you find that many customers then are now aware of your product or service. For example, maybe MTN, yeah? Everyone knows about MTN in Uganda. So these are the mezzanine stage. Customers may still buy parts or replace their products with newer models. So think about a company in that stage, yeah? They're not selling something new, but maybe there are parts that you want to add on. So these are more of add-ons to the already existing product. The growth at this stage is slow. Yeah? It's a mature stage of a company's business. And if the firm has no new projects in the works, their external financing needs is low and internal financing is high, because they've reached a level where they have a lot more internal financing out of retained earnings, out of growth of cash flows over a period of time. Yeah? So the firm at this stage may so much also look into the retained earnings, and they need to be able to think through how they can pull these retained earnings or resources they have available to productive use. They can choose to finance operations either by issuing bonds or equity. So we go to the final stage, the development and distress stage. When the firm has reached the final stage, sales can stagnate. Yeah? So in a market really that is saturated now, everybody knows your product, everybody might have your product, or they're really not interested if they don't have it, but they're aware of it. Yeah? So sales here can stagnate or decline due to replacement by a better product or competition. The external financing needs may decline because now competition is coming in, customers are moving to the competitor, so your market share is also reducing. Yeah? So your cash flow needs at this stage might also increase. So the companies may choose to either retire debt or repurchase stock, and a significant external funding is no longer necessary at this level. So you have a lot more money internally, and you need to be aware of you need to know what you're going to use this money to, for. So these are the different stages that we've seen and have been explained as to where your business could be, and really the progression of a business from an idea to a late or distress and development stage. So as you prepare to find potential funders, there are different things that you need to consider and think through, and which funders really are there available. The process of finding potential funders varies from applying to the fund, pitching to investors. The pointers that I'm going to share below should be undertaken by a business to prepare them for receiving potential funding. The first step involves understanding the available funding options. You'll want to assess which types of investors are out there, and who are they that are good for my business. These are a few of the investors or options that you can raise funds from. There's crowdfunding, I mentioned that earlier. A business raises funds through many small investments via an online platform. There are 4 different types. They might raise using equity, or donations, rewards, and then micro lending. Then there are also angel investors. These are individuals who use their own money to help startups, and they help them overcome those early stage challenges and may provide more favorable terms than those offered by venture capitalists. Then there are also business incubators. A business incubator is a program offering developing startups a small investment in exchange for equity, alongside mentorship, office space, networks that you can access. states that the grants will be given to cover programmatic costs only. Yeah? So they're not covering overheads, they're not covering any other costs other than those program-related expenses. And then the applicant organizations must have a track record of success in delivering services to disabled children. So these are their criteria that they're looking to fund. Yeah? So you should ask yourself, yeah? Consider, is this a funder that is suitable for your organization? You're looking for money just to pay rent and employee costs, but their funding is also targeting program activities. So understand the donor critically before you request for funds from this particular donor. Yeah. Again, the other things you need to think about as you're targeting different funders, good preparatory work can help you focus your time and energy on identifying and pursuing those opportunities most likely to result in an award. Yeah? So don't go around shopping for every donor and grant that you think will give you money. Yeah? So focus your time and energy on only those that you think you will win. Yeah? Businesses need to establish a good personal credit. So if a lender and investor wants to see how you're doing, they also want to see how you're handling money. Yeah? So it's crucial when an investor is looking to give you money, you need to have at least established good personal credit. Yeah? Have a strong and solid business plan. Your plan helps you to bring clarity to your vision, it defines your goals, and also details your financial strengths and needs. So knowing your numbers as well is critical. You've seen when people are pitching, yeah? They have the numbers out there, but they cannot articulate them possibly. You find an investor who will read through those numbers and say, no, this story doesn't really add up. Yeah? So know your numbers really well. Lenders and investors want to see that you understand your finances and you can clearly articulate them. So prepare a good pitch. Yeah? When you're doing your pitch, remember you're not just pitching your business idea. Yeah? You're pitching a business deal. So at this point, you're actually giving the investor a decision to either give you money, yeah, to come into partnership with you, or to make a no-go decision. So you're not just showing what your idea is, what your product is. You're not out there to get product to market. Yeah? You're actually trying to get into a business deal when you're doing your pitch to any investor. So take it as seriously as, at that point, really, you can make a sale. Start early. Many funding application cycles have deadlines, so start early, prepare early. This helps you to become more familiar with the major funding programs and also the sponsors that are available. And also helps to get into the rush of really filling in proposals because you have to meet that deadline. So take time to go through it. It might just be a small paragraph or page that will separate you, make you distinct from the other entrepreneurs that have put in their proposals. Yeah? So research the funders thoroughly before you apply. And you also see, by and large, funders, especially the large national corporations, and at the bigger, really large-scale, maybe countrywide competitions, funders normally look favorably on applicants who have already completed successfully for smaller grants. So even when you do so many pitches, yeah, and you don't win some of those, that is experience building. You will win one, but you've built a whole lot of experience there, which you cannot cost in money terms. Yeah? So go out and look for pitches and competitions you can actually get to be a part of. Yeah? So let's also look at different ways where new emerging and debt solutions through fintechs have come up. Yeah? Fintechs and emergence of new debt solutions. Traditional banks and loans are generally difficult to obtain by young companies whose risk profile is inferior to that of more mature companies. Yeah? You have things like collateral, there's no security that an entrepreneur is able to give. Yeah? So these are issues really that are there and are present and prevalent in the early stage businesses. In emerging markets, credit constraints, they tend to be particularly severe, impeding farm growth and helping explain why these countries usually show a high density of micro and small businesses, the MSMEs. Yeah? So you find that in developing countries, there are many MSMEs. So we ask ourselves, why don't we grow past that level? Yeah? So against this background, you find that microcredit has also been welcomed as a major financing innovation, helping to alleviate credit constraints faced by the underserved communities in both the developing and advanced communities. So these micro-lenders are really good as well for a developing nation. However, the main idea behind microcredit is the alleviation of poverty rather than the support of transformational entrepreneurship and innovation. Yeah? In fact, as randomized and controlled experiences have shown, many borrowers turned out to be subsistence or reluctant entrepreneurs who started a business because they were unable to find a job. Yeah? I think we can relate that a lot in the Ugandan system, the ecosystem. We have so many entrepreneurs, but we ask ourselves, why do they fail past maybe 2 years, 1 year, 5 years? Why don't they ever get to a certain level? Another factor impeding the role of microcredit as a source of entrepreneurial finance is seen in the limited efficiency of such operations. By relying primarily on manual processes and cash, microcredit organizations generally have high transaction costs that restrict their ability to achieve to scale and act as lenders beyond their original business model. So you always stay at that microcredit level and never grow into bigger financial institutions. So looking forward, however, it's believed that advances in digital finance could help not only traditional bank lending, but also microcredit lenders to play a more meaningful role as a funding source of entrepreneurs. Importantly, new technologies enable businesses and individuals to become connected to a digital payments infrastructure via mobile phones. Yeah? There are many people who use more mobile money than they'll go to the bank. Computers and point-of-sale devices, yeah? Replacing cash transactions and bridging long distances. So you find that with the advent of this digital and fintech, you find that even transactions which are long distance can be done in a matter of a second. Yeah? Digital finance refers to a system in which financial services are delivered over digital infrastructure, with fintechs enhancing the efficiency and reducing the cost of such transactions. At the same time, fintechs have helped develop new forms of intermediation. Around the world, fintechs such as Raw Financial in Uganda have emerged that employ new technologies. Yeah? So there are different fintechs around that are really using this. Sente is one obvious one that you've heard of, they've grown. And these fintechs are really doing what traditional banks would have done. Yeah? So it's time for us to really embrace fintechs and technology that is going to advance us in the financial markets. Thanks to these technologies, fintech lenders are expected to be in a superior position to address friction in the traditional lending market, and they help narrow the credit gap faced in particular with the young companies. Yeah? Because their restrictions are not as tight as traditional banks. So what do you need to do once you have identified your potential sponsor or funder? Yeah? One, again, review their web pages. Find out about this investor or funder. Yeah? Find out what their current interests are. Find out where their recent grantees or where are they playing. Yeah? So it's important for you to understand the funder or the sponsor. Yeah? The goal is for you to discover the overlap between their goals and your business goal, and focus on outcomes and the funding needs that bridge their goals, their priorities, and your goal. Yeah? Also, target your efforts to programs that are good fit within your business. Yeah? At Orders Africa Capital, through our venture fund, yeah, we also provide online investor readiness training. You can visit our website. We do this for entrepreneurs and really help them to put their businesses in a position that they are ready and attractable to funders. The purpose of this is to improve on the quality of entrepreneurs within the Ugandan ecosystem and also help them to be able to compete for funding on a worldwide platform. In addition, the other funding opportunities and active funders in Uganda, and these can be identified on platforms such as Digest Africa, Crunchbase, among many others. So in conclusion, yeah, entrepreneurs enjoy an increasingly broad spectrum of funding sources across different stages of their company's life cycle. However, while the emergence of these new sources has helped alleviate funding gaps, it has not really eliminated them. Yeah? You still find there's a gap there that still needs financing, but we're talking. Yeah? At platforms like this, I mean, you have 100,000 plus viewers. Yeah? There's no space, I would think, in Uganda that can accommodate 100,000 people. But because of the advent of technology, we're able to seek and speak to people all over the world. Yeah? So these things, that discussion has happened, we're bridging the gap for funding, the knowledge is being put out there, and very soon we're getting into a company. You had the Africa Netflix, yeah? So we're getting into the mindset one, first and foremost, to see what fits the Ugandan or African market, yeah? How can we use and copy from what is there abroad internationally and bring it down and tailor it to suit our own local needs, yeah? However, there's still really an emergence. There's emergence of new sources, yeah, and has helped alleviate funding gaps, the fintechs, for example. This is particularly true for many developing and emerging economies where financial markets have remained underdeveloped. But there is ample evidence that many entrepreneurial businesses in advanced economies, they still also face severe funding constraints as well. New research suggests that these constraints are felt especially by female entrepreneurs and minority groups. That's why we're discussing gender lens, yeah? By and by, yeah, we find that gender lens discussions, funders towards youth are really taking more prominence in this ecosystem. Thank you for that. Enjoy the rest of the day and the week, Kampala Innovation Week, has set ahead.
Hello? Hello? Yes, Kenneth. Hello, good morning, everyone.
Yes, good morning, Kenneth. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I will, I don't know how this is working. Do we just get right into the panel or?
You just hold on a bit for your co-panelists to show up.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think one of my panelists is Otim Gerald, who will be joining virtually. Yes, there he is. Hi, Gerald.
Hi, Kenneth. Hi, everyone.
Hi, and I think we'll request Alice Muonge, who's just been giving the keynote speech and is physically in at Design Hub, to also just perhaps join our panel. So a good morning and a welcome to all who are attending at Kampala Innovation Week today. I am Kenneth Legacy. I'm the CEO and Chief Investment Officer at Otis Africa Capital. And on our panel today, we'll be discussing just a follow-on from the keynote speech on identifying and taking advantage of funding opportunities. So we have just heard from Alice, just talking about the different stages and types of funding. And to discuss this further with me today is Gerald Otim, who we know through his business has recently raised funding. But as well, I'll invite Alice to just tell us some more, and we'll be sitting in on the side of an investor to discuss some of the things that are considered as you're seeking funding. We were supposed to have on the panel with us today FCA Investments, who actually made the investment in Nsibuko, but they've sent their apologies. So, but I think we'll be taking a lot of interaction from the audience to as we go through the session. Without further ado, let's get into the panel, into the discussion. I'm going to invite Jerry. the audience, and that we'll be getting either in the chat or on the Kubilo link. So over to you, Gerald. If you could just give us some opening remarks about Ensibuko, but also your thoughts on the theme of our panel today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. It's a pleasure for me to be on this panel. Gerald Otim, the founder and CEO of Ensibuko. We are fintech based here in Kampala, Uganda. We are building a digital ecosystem and digital infrastructure for savings groups and circles in Africa. I think my story and my journey raising funding is probably typical of a lot of other startups here in Uganda. As you all might know, a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you fundraising or raising investment is not a job. It's tough. And you know, I've been down that path. I have had a couple of successes, but I've also had a lot of challenges, and more than happy to share my experience on this panel with you guys. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Gerald. So we'll just get into some of the questions I have prepared, and I'll ask our audience if there's any questions anything you'd like to know. It might be about the way they went about their journey. It might be about the kind of questions they faced. Please start sending them in so that we can make the most of having Gerald on the call on the panel here with us. But Gerald, maybe just to start off, one of the questions that I just had for you. So I know you've talked about raising money and the journey you faced, and as when I have my hat on as maybe an investor or an angel investor out there, I know one of the things we usually preach to entrepreneurs is around investment readiness. So you may have been through or may have gone through investment readiness training as an entrepreneur. I wanted to ask, what has been your experience of what you learned on investment readiness training programs? And is this working? Are there any benefits? What could be done to make this be carried out better, especially for you who's preparing to get funded as you raise funding? So what's working, what's not with investment readiness training?
Thank you, Kenneth. Yeah, it's true. I have been part of a few investment readiness training programs. I must say that those kinds of programs have had their share of success. I think if I'm to credit them from my own experience as an entrepreneur, I would say that these programs have helped entrepreneurs become more aware about the logistics of investment raising, which is really, what do I need as an entrepreneur? What do I need to have to be able to raise money? Who do I need to talk to? What type of funding do I need? I think that that part there's been quite some success. A lot of the entrepreneurs are quite aware about what kind of funding they need, who they need to talk to, what they need to be ready to talk to those investors. But I also have to be as honest as I can be, that I don't think that these programs have been as successful in improving the quality of entrepreneurs. And for me, from my experience raising money, I have found that the quality of entrepreneurs is quite a big factor in the decision investors make. If they are going to invest or not, the quality of the entrepreneur, the person that's behind the innovation, the person that's driving the team and driving the idea, the quality of that entrepreneur is extremely, extremely important. And I'll speak a bit more about this because I think that this is really important. But when you go through these programs, there's been a huge focus on, there's a checklist usually, they have the checklist and they say, as an entrepreneur, you need to meet everything on the checklist, So you need to have your pitch deck, you need to have your financial model, you need to have the audited accounts, you need to have the legal documents in place, you need to have all the legal templates that you need so that investors have a data room that they can visit and see all this information, and all that is great. Those programs have also focused on teaching entrepreneurs what kind of funding do you need, what's appropriate for your business, where do you look for that funding, and all that is great. But I've seen in my journey raising investment that investors focus quite a lot on the quality of the entrepreneur, the person that they actually are investing in, and my advice for entrepreneurs is usually that, as entrepreneurs, we need to focus on building your own personal quality. You need to raise the bar for yourself. And if I'm to specify some of the things that I think would be important to focus on when preparing entrepreneurs for investment, the first thing is that entrepreneurs need to be taught how to speak the vocabulary that investors understand, right? And investors, from my own personal experience, and we all might have different experiences, but from my journey raising investment, investors understand two things. They understand opportunity and growth, right? So everything else is great. It's great to have a good product. It's great to have. To be solving a problem. It's great to have a good team. But you need, as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to articulate to investors what the opportunity is in very specific terms. How large is the opportunity? What is the opportunity? Where is the opportunity? And you need to be able to explain to investors how you're going to grow the business in financial terms and numbers, in terms of customer size and in terms of revenue. Secondly, as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to build social capital, right? I have always told my entrepreneur friends that people invest in people, right? That when an investor writes you a check, they write you that check because they believe that you, as a person, have the qualities it takes to grow the business and achieve a meaningful return for the investor. So it's really important that as entrepreneurs, we are able to build that social capital, but also be able to build credibility around you as an entrepreneur. You need to be believable, right? You need to understand your industry. And most importantly, which is my third point, you need to know your business. And for me personally, from my experience, some of the things that the investor has spoken to have been interested. They're interested in things like your annual recurring revenue, what we call ARR as an entrepreneur. They're interested in your customer acquisition cost. They're interested in the lifetime value of your customer. They're interested in your competitive landscape. They're interested in your knowledge of the applicable regulations, those are applicable to your business. They're interested in your defendable valuation. So it's really important that as entrepreneurs, you understand these things, because if you can't articulate these things as an entrepreneur, then it's going to be really difficult for investors to take interest in your business. So there's a lot more that I could say, but if I'm to summarize all those, these are the things that I would summarize first. Thank you, Ken.
No, thank you very much for that, Gerald. It's interesting actually that the response you've given is in a way responding to one of the questions I see in the chat. Christian Mwamambe has asked, as an investor, what aspect of the business is a make or break for the business? And I just like what you've said there around two things: opportunity and growth. So you have to be it's okay to solve a problem, as you say, okay, to have a product and good thing, but you have to be able to show the investor the opportunity, how large it is, and that you're growing as you take advantage and solve the problem with a great team for this opportunity. So Christian, that is maybe a quick response to the question of asked, because I'm able to see the question you're asking in the chat, Christian. just then looking, if I put my hat on and I was thinking as an investor, so I know, Gerald, you managed to get funding from FCA Investments, and they are one of global investors that are working in Kampala. But what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs or other entrepreneurs out there that need to position themselves to be able to get funding from the likes of FCA Investments? Do you have any advice for entrepreneurs in this regard? How can they position themselves?
Yeah, thanks, Kenneth. I think that, part of my advice really comes from the things that I've already mentioned. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be noticeable. Investors love to invest in places where, there is the opportunity and growth and all of that, but they also want to put their money in businesses that are interesting, right? So you need to be noticeable as a business. You need to really invest in building, use platforms, social media, whatever, being these events like the Kampala Innovation Week, just be noticeable. People need to know you so that, when they see your pitch deck, they don't need to ask 10 people to finally, find out about your business. If they don't know about you, they should ask, the next person they should ask should know about you. So as a business, it's really important that, you are noticeable. And if the investor doesn't know you, the next person they ask should know you. Then, of course, you need to build traction. You need to have some numbers to talk about. A lot of times we as entrepreneurs, we really, like Kenneth said, we focus on the problem that we're solving, we focus on the product that we're building. That's great, but from my experience, products don't raise money, right? It's numbers that raise money, it's the traction, it's the growth. That's where people see opportunity, right? So you really need to focus on growing numbers, on growing the business, and getting the product out there. Because having a great product itself is good, but in this part of the world, it's really difficult to raise money with just a good product. So that's, amongst many things, those are some of the things that I would suggest to entrepreneurs.
And maybe just a side note to mention here, not a side note, but relatedly. Our keynote speech today focused on the different types of capital and making sure you're getting the right type of capital for you, for the right stage of your business. And I do know that while the focus and the press has been on the funding that Incubators got from FCA Investments, among others, as part of I don't know if it was a seed round, I guess preparing for Series A of 1 million, but I know prior to that, you'd secured money from angel investors as pre-seed funding, and you'd also gotten a grant from GSMA Innovation Fund. So the reason why I'm mentioning all this for the people who are attending and watching this is that, as you can see, as the business grows, it needs to take and get a blend of different funding options, from grants to angel investors, then to institutional investors. So Incubators has demonstrated that path of getting funding. So as you build your businesses and go through your own journey of growing your businesses, it's important that you know these different types of funding that are out there, and you know therefore how you should target that funding. Maybe related to that, related to that, maybe at this point in time, I may mention something that may be of help to some of our entrepreneurs. I know, and allow me to take some time aside to show this. I know that a lot of you are looking for ways you can raise funding to grow your business, especially as you start now. At Otis Africa Capital, one of the things we're doing is running a pitch competition that will be offering grant funding to start the businesses that link you to more commercial funding. So these are the kind of steps you take as you grow your business. So I'd encourage a lot of you to just reach in and apply to this. I'm showing the link up there on the screen, ideafoundry.org/pitch competition. We're doing this in partnership with others. But that can start you on your fundraising journey. Maybe I'll just turn then to our chat again. There's some more questions in there still from Christian. So there's a comment here. As entrepreneurs, it is important to understand the ego of your target investor. By ego, I mean what drives or irritates them. And I know I wanted to bring Gerald in. I don't know, Gerald, if you're able to just maybe comment on that. What lessons have you had along your journey with these different types of investors and capital that you've got that has helped you understand maybe the ego of your investors? Thank you.
Yeah, I think Christian points out something really, really useful. Raising investment, raising money, it's really, we're dealing with individuals here, and these individuals, they have emotions, they have feelings, they have personal interests, they have values, things that they value. So it's like dating, It's like dating. It's really a relationship that you're trying to build. You're trying to get the other person interested in you or interested in your business. So it's really important that you spend time understanding them as individuals and as people, the people behind this investment fund, because you're dealing with people, you're meeting people, and you need to understand what's their story personally, what's their motivation, what did they do before they joined the investment fund, what are their values. So really spend time speaking to them about the things, ask them questions, engage them. You're really building a relationship, because as you do that, then you start to understand the things that they're interested in and the things they don't like. And you avoid the things they don't like, and you focus on the things that they like to do. So it's really, it's the art of people, and that's been my experience.
So it's a relationship, as you're saying. It's the art of managing people. I don't know if there are any more. I'd like to open this up to any more questions in the audience besides the ones I'm seeing on the chat on the platform below. Are there any questions that are coming through that people would like to ask? Okay, so there are some things to note as well. I know Gerald, you mentioned that while the investors are interested in opportunity and growth, I think what's important and what shouldn't get lost is that you need the team. You need to be building a team to get this growth. Okay, sorry, we have a question. I'll keep one. There's a question from the.
All right, thanks, Kenneth and Gerald. My question goes to Gerald, and probably Kenneth, you can chip in here too. While raising your round for Nsiboko, how did you approach the valuation conversation of explaining that, one, you're probably worth that valuation that comes from the post-round of a 1 million raise, and giving context that it was more specifically within an African startup, what would you advise for someone who wants to probably raise close to a similar round while approaching the valuation conversation?
May I take that, Kenneth?
Oh yes, Gerald, it's been addressed to you. You raised the up, so yes, please. Let's hear from you.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that valuation is the conversation about valuation differs depending on the stage of the business you are at. So when we're raising our first seed round, or pre-seed, when we raised our pre-seed in 2017, the conversation about valuation was very different. You know, we put a number on the table and we justified that number, right? You know, we had a lot of things to say to justify it. And what it really came down to was really, does the investor and does the entrepreneur understand the opportunity? Because usually in the pre-seed round, you really don't have a lot of traction. So it really comes down to, do the both of you agree on what the opportunity is? And do the both of you agree on the current state of affairs of the business? And is the valuation justifiable at that point? But when we're raising our seed round this year, the conversation was different. Because at that point, we had already raised the pre-seed at a certain valuation, and we already had revenue traction. So what the conversation came down to was, what was your base valuation during pre-seed? What is your annual recurring revenue? What's the revenue multiplier that you're going to agree on? Because at that point, it's really about formulas. It's no longer really about, there's really not a lot of perceptive justifications for valuation at that level. You justify valuation with numbers and traction, that this is how far we have grown revenue. If you apply a certain multiplier to it, and you add that to a base valuation at pre-seed, this is what the valuation should be, right? And then, you have some kind of perceptive valuation based on futuristic business, the kinds of contracts you have on your pipeline. That's what the conversation becomes, right? So it really depends on the level of business you're at. If you're at pre-seed, my advice is that you need to be able to, you can only justify valuation based on your pipeline, right? So forecast your pipeline. What do you have on your pipeline? What's the value of your pipeline? And based on that, you justify valuation. But after you've raised your first round of investment, the conversation changes.
Yes. Maybe just to supplement what you're saying, Gerald. As a finance and investment professional, valuation is a blend, both an art and a science. Just supplement what Gerald was saying. When you're that pre-seed, yes, it is an art of trying to see the potential, what it would become, what it could offer, the market, how large it is. Have you proven that there is a large customer that will buy your product, and therefore can we see that pipeline? But when you then get to see Series A, Series B, it starts to become more precise because there's precedent, there's multiples that are being used. Having said that, as a science, there is generally three ways you value business. It is either what it has cost you to create where you are now and the assets you have now as a business, or it may be worth what other similar businesses as you have sold for in the past, and that's why multiples are important, and maybe multiples of revenue, maybe multiples of profit, maybe multiples of users. The multiples vary depending on the industry and the sector, or it may be based on the cash you're actually making. So to Gerald's point around ARR, that's annual recurring revenue, or the free cash flow the business is generating. So we can't exhaust the way you value business now, but there's material out there you can look at. But you as an entrepreneur maybe focus then on knowing what the drivers of this value are, i.e., yes, you've found a market that is large enough. Yes, you have the team to execute on that market and that opportunity. Yes, you are achieving traction and showing that growth if you've not yet hit those ARRs. And then yes, now, when you've hit those, you're more mature and you've hit those ARRs, use that multiple to justify what valuation for your business is going to be. So that's really the way it works. And I can borrow experience from other businesses I know that have raised either the pre-seed or seed stage, and really to what Gerald is saying. When you're before seed, you're still talking more about your idea, your team, how big it could be. But once you get to seed towards Series A, the investors want to see numbers. Because they have to get a return on the money they invest in your business. I'll check if, do we have any, please, any more questions in the audience? caller Arthur Alali, I see a question raised here, but it's not clear. You say, I would like to learn about what you have throughout entrepreneurship journey through an apprenticeship program. I don't know if that question is targeted or directed to Gerald, but it is not too clear. Maybe you could ask it again. In the meantime, are there any other questions in the live audience we have that you'd like Gerald to answer? Oh no, I'm being told no questions there. So maybe I'll ask you just one more. I'll ask you one more question, Gerald, and perhaps use that as well for you to give us your closing remarks. But what do you think can be done to help entrepreneurs? And maybe my closing remarks will also be the same. But what do you think can be done to provide more access to growth and later stage financing for entrepreneurs and businesses in our ecosystem in Uganda? What are your thoughts as an entrepreneur who's just raised money and gone through this journey? What do you think we can do to make sure there's more funding for entrepreneurs?
Thank you, Kenneth. You know, when I think about the startup ecosystem, I think of it the same way I think about the tourism sector, right? What's our government doing to attract tourists into the country, right? You're showcasing and promoting the attractions that we have here in the country, right? So I think about the startup ecosystem the same way. I think that one, we need to improve the face value of the startup ecosystem by showcasing, celebrating, supporting, and promoting promising businesses, right? We need to build iconic businesses, and we need to talk about them as an ecosystem, right? And it's a collective responsibility, because the more we do that, the more interesting or attractive our ecosystem becomes globally as an investment destination. The same way you think about tourism destination. If you want to make Uganda a tourism destination, there are things you must do, right? And it's really about showcasing what's attractive. And if you want to make Uganda an investment destination for startups, then we need to show what's attractive about startups here. We need to celebrate them, we need to talk about them, we need to build them, right? We need to locally also invest in them, which really leads me to my next point, which is that we need to improve the appetite for local investors to take risks in local businesses. In markets where there's been more foreign capital going into the startup ecosystem, the appetite for local investors to invest in local businesses is already high, right? And it just doesn't happen like magic. It's deliberate, you know? We need to demonstrate this access to local investors. First, we need to map who the potential local investors are. We need to educate them about the dynamics of venture capital, because most of these guys do not understand venture capital. They don't understand the dynamics and mechanisms of investing in a tech company. You know, they're interested in investing in real estate because the results are visible and immediate, right? So they really need to be educated, and then we need to demonstrate to them, right? We need to show them where it has worked. If it hasn't worked here, we need to show them where it has worked in other markets, so that they can get interested in investing locally as well.
No, thank you, Gerald, for those remarks. We have just about 3 minutes to wrap up our panel, and maybe I'll just supplement what you said around how what we can do to improve access. But in doing that, I'll also just remind everyone of the comments you made around what they need to do as entrepreneurs to prepare themselves for investment. You've said it's important that as entrepreneurs we know how to speak investor vocabulary to understand what they're interested in, they understand opportunity and growth. While it's great to solve a problem, have a great product, have a good team, it's important to show that there's a large enough opportunity and that team you've created will is growing as it takes advantage of that opportunity. Second, you said it was important that for entrepreneurs to work on themselves, build their social capital, and be ready to be the entrepreneur that will grow that business that investors are investing in. Now, just turning to the investor side, I think you've raised some valid points around what can be done to provide more access to growth stage and later stage capital. I know through initiatives such as the Kampala Innovation Week, we are certainly showcasing our ecosystem, but I think it's been a platform for us to bring together the actors in our ecosystem so that we can talk and present good businesses, yes, but also learn from other models. For example, yesterday I know we are learning from the German Startup Ecosystem. So that's important. On improving the appetite for local investors, with my hat on as Autos Africa Capital, and also as, say, Kampala Investment Network, I know work is being done in building local funds to invest in venture, but in also educating and encouraging local investment clubs and groups to come and participate as, say, angel investors in startups. So where before at for example, Kampala Investment Network, we were showcasing deal days, the trend is turning now, and we now have investment groups asking to see companies. So that is encouraging. And then I know at Autos Africa Capital, where we are building a venture fund, we've created local vehicles that can now take capital from investors domiciled locally in Uganda to help them get exposure to venture. And I'm proud to say that we've applied that to 2 companies that are in the portfolio. And maybe just on that point then, Ensibuko has raised capital. I know that yesterday, Ugandan, which is one of the businesses I'm proud to say I helped mentor as they were growing, also exited via a sale to TRIPS, who are coming into Uganda from Nigeria. So these are the kind of stories that I hope will encourage investors to come to our ecosystem. I think that was it really. Thank you very much for everyone who's been attending our panel today. That's all we had time for today. And I'm very grateful to Gerald for coming today to share his lessons on finding and finding and harnessing capital to grow a business. Thank you very much, and wish you all a lovely rest of the Kampala Innovation Week. Bye-bye from us.
Thank you very much, Kenneth and Gerald. That was a very insightful and informative session. I haven't seen anyone as intent on talking funding like Kenneth does. I am a student of his funding lectures on how to position yourself for funding. And at such a time, it's very, I think let's really applaud the fact that Ugandan startups are now starting to be very intentional in positioning themselves for funding opportunities. There's been quite a number, there's been quite a number in the creative sector. We've had Netflix really give this big fund for people that can create creative projects. We've also had Google. I think they gave about 45, how much was that? How much was that? Are we together? Really? Really? Okay, so at this point, I'm very happy that you've been able to attend this session. Please do not shy away from approaching anyone that you think has your money, and you being bold enough to tell them, I need this money because it will help me build my idea from scratch to scale. So at this point, I'm going to request everyone that is seated at the back to just really push to the front, yeah? Please come to the front. Let's fill up these front seats because they don't look okay just being that way. So at this point, I'm going to invite DJ Lord 6. He's our entertainment for today. Like I mentioned yesterday, it's very important that as we sit in and listen to all these important sessions, we also give ourselves time to actually listen into the entertainment that has been planned for us today. Do not walk away from the room. If you are watching from Hubilo or YouTube, stay tuned because the next session or the next panel is very interesting. We're going to be talking about education and how to break through into this currently stunted industry in Uganda. So, yes, Lord 6, DJ Lord 6, are you in the room?
Greatness.